And what we realize is there's other people that want this because they're in a red ocean industry that is hyper competitive, and they can't even get their prospects' attention. This pierces through that entire veil, grabs them and says, come talk to me. Let me establish a relationship with you in 12 minutes so that you can know, like, and trust me, and we can even have an opportunity to do business together. And that's what the Conversion Podcast is all about.
Yeah, dude, it's genius. Okay, that's what it is. You know, when you had first told me about this, I mean, I changed everything.
Are you tired of working more for less profits in your home service business? What if I could show you $100,000 in hidden annual profits in your business in less than 3 minutes? Would you be interested? And not only show you where, but how to create that 100K in 6 months or less without additional advertising or marketing spend guaranteed. Just go to sharpenthespearcoaching.com to see how truly simple it is. That's sharpenthespearcoaching.com. Do it now.
And welcome back to STS, Sharpen the Spear podcast, with another incredible guest. I've got Josh Thomas. And as always, Josh, first, welcome to the show. And secondly, no one knows Josh better than Josh. So Josh, give us a little backstory, bring us up to speed, and we'll get into our conversation.
Yeah, I love it. And I love it when somebody says, hey, tell me about yourself, because then I can just be whoever I want.
That's it. Enough about me. Let's talk about me. Yes.
I just change my persona from podcast to podcast.
That's what keeps things exciting. I like that.
A chameleon, you know.
It's always a mystery with Josh.
Yeah, right. So at a high level, I am a business consultant, if you will, and I say that with quotes because one of my very first mentors was a Perry Marshall. He was a very well-known consultant on Google AdWords at the time when I was working with him, and he always told people, hey, you know, if I'm at a networking event and I don't really want to talk to somebody or I want to end the conversation, I just tell them I'm a consultant. And so I try to stay away from that word, you know, because it's got this negative kind of like generic connotation. But basically, I'm a guy that has scrapped his way from being a high school band teacher to a failed real estate agent in 2008, to also a failed entrepreneur that eventually ran out of money and had to go get a job. And the only place that would hire me at the time was a call center, and I had no experience in sales. But it was the best decision of my life. Learned an important skill that nobody can ever take away from me, and I leveraged that skill into launching other opportunities and growing into a guy that now builds sales teams and builds sales processes for small business. And that's the short version. If you've got a couple of hours and a bottle of whiskey, I can tell you the rest of it.
Right. Well, that's awesome. You know, I love sharing failures because I've had them. Oh, it took me out. Right. I've had my plenty of my shares of failures. The first thing I always appreciate is when people are willing to say they failed. It always starts there. Like, dude, I'm not covering anything up. I've been doing this for 35 years, different businesses. You think I'm not going to fail in that time? I don't know if anyone doesn't have any failures in that kind of time span, you know, one way or another. Maybe not complete loss. I had complete loss and started over, but like you, 08 real estate, probably not the best thing to be in.
I was convinced because I was a teacher and I was like burned out and tired of being a teacher. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make millions selling real estate. And it was 2008. And so I got my license in July. And I mean, I was a teacher and nobody really knew that it was going to be that bad. And I didn't even know what was going on. And then suddenly it was like, oh, like, why is this so hard? But the reason it was so hard, first, I didn't know how to sell, number one. And then number two, nobody could qualify for a loan and nobody could sell the house for like half of what they paid for it. So like all the cards were stacked against me. And like I don't know that I would go back and trade that because it really forced me to find a way to survive. And those are the moments that you really, those are the moments you really start to innovate.
Yeah, so true. Same thing with me, right? I mean, you go from everything. I didn't even know what I was going to do. I just knew I couldn't and wouldn't do what I was already doing. So, yeah, I love that. I think it's important for people. I want to talk about the sales stuff because I think for most people, sales kind of has a negative connotation. They think of the sleazy car salesman. They think this and that. They think it's too pushy. They've got all this stuff about sales, and you can walk through people through the base. Well, listen, you're selling every day. You're selling. You're trying to get your kids to do something. That's selling. When you get your wife to do something, or husband to do something, that's selling, right? So we're kind of in that, but they won't really see that. But even at a different level than that, it's the art of selling, right? It really is. There's, in our pre-conversation, like you showed me some stuff that should have been just obvious to me. And I'm like, well, dang, I never thought of that. So it's like, there's just so much to it. It's such a wide scope of stuff, but when you can truly sell well, I don't mean you know what I mean. It's a pretty amazing thing, and you can live a limitless life. You can do a whole lot of stuff, right?
And here's the thing, I learned I worked in 2 call centers, and I was very fortunate to have probably some of the best sales trainers in the world. And I don't say that lightly. These guys were masters of their craft. And so you learn the fundamentals of sales, which is basically understanding human psychology. It's nothing more than that. But we have to be careful not to put too much emphasis on the technique of sales. Because you're right. I did some research on this. Only 3% of the public would find a salesperson trustworthy. Did a poll on that. 3%, 3 out of 100 people, if you say you're a salesperson, will find you trustworthy. And the reason for that is the sleazy used car salesman, like we got the cliche. They're using all their tactics and techniques. And that kind of works, but it works way less than it used to because people have evolved. People are sophisticated. They're on to you. They know that they're being put through a process. And these days, if you want to sell something, number one, you've got to be transparent about what you're doing. And number two, you have to take the emphasis off of selling the features and benefits, and you have to put the emphasis on how it's going to make somebody feel, what kind of identity they're going to feel like they're stepping into, what kind of status it delivers for them, because those are the triggers that are really going to make them buy. And the only way they're going to be able to receive those things, we nest all of this together, right? The only way they're going to be able to receive you painting a picture and showing them a vision and sharing that with them is if they know who you are, if they like being around you, and if they trust what you have to say. And if you don't have know, like, and trust, none of the rest of it is ever going to work.
Yeah, I think that's and it's been, I had that realization maybe 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago, started learning that, kind of the know, like, trust thing. And then I started really understanding, like, relationship, because that's what you're really doing. You're really cultivating a relationship. That's the know, okay, and it's the like, and it's trust, okay. So you got to full. What I like to think of it as building a relationship. Again, it's really more about them. It's a lot more listening than talking, and getting this stuff. And you're exactly right on the, features and benefits. Put that aside and really get the status stuff. That thing. One thing I use when I tell people is, well, look, if I see a car, I'm going to go buy a car, and it's $30,000, straight across. If it was $30,100, I'd still buy it, right? I don't have really that cutoff point. It's not like it's not a price factor on a car. It really isn't. I mean, if you're going to jump up to $100,000, it might be something, but you're not really buying it because it's at the top of your budget. Uh-huh. You're buying it because how you look at it. It's going to get you to where you want to go every time you turn the key. it's got this and this, and it's status, right? It's how I look, I feel good, so it's a way different animal than what people used to think. I mean, yeah, it's got horsepower, it's got this, got that, but when they fire up that engine, right, and there's some Hemi guy, and stuff like that, it's that sound. He's more about that sound, okay, than like the price. It's like, because it's an identity thing, right? It becomes this identity. They're in those cars, those Challengers and stuff like that. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, you can kind of, fit it to what you're talking about there, Josh. And I think when people understand that, it kind of repositions how they're selling, right?
Yeah, indeed. And this is really the secret here. And I don't know if we're like going to just do a sales clinic here, but we totally can. But here's what it's really about. You can sell, and you framed this perfectly at the beginning. You're always selling. It's just that sometimes when we are doing it for money or for business, we feel like we need to step into this role. But don't step into the role. Just be the person that people can trust in any situation, even if you feel like that's going to cost you sales, and it might, but you don't want those sales anyway. You want to sleep at night. Sleep's way more important than money.
Right.
If you don't have good sleep, you're going to live a crappy life. You're going to be able to spend that money well. So you need to just be the same person that is trying to sell your daughter on going to bed at 9. Be the same person that's trying to sell your husband or wife on spending your potential husband or wife on spending the rest of the life with you. Be that same person, because I guarantee you, if you're married or if you've been married, they didn't get with you because you convinced them with your tactics. And if they did, that's why you're divorced.
Right.
It was
strictly ring drive. It's just the ring drive. That's all I'm going for. She wants that ring.
Yeah.
But
it's the same thing. Like, you sold, if you're married, you sold your spouse on the vision, and you were able to share that vision. They were like, yeah, I want that. But you did that through authenticity and building trust and connection and having an established relationship. The same thing is happening on the car lot or on the phone or at the store, at the cashier. It's just a different, like a micro relationship that's happening there. We established that know, like, and trust. Now I can receive whatever it is that you want to share with me, and I can decide, me as a consumer, now I feel empowered to make a decision, because I'm not going to just put up my defenses because I like you. So it's not about you anymore. That's the real thing about a salesperson, is you got to find a way to make this not about you, if at all possible, and help them decide what they want.
Right. Yeah, it's really that outward focus. It can't be about you. It can't be about your commission or anything else. And here's the next thing I think is great about all of that too. When you're in that mindset, okay, you know what else is great about that? You can sell them again and again and again, right? They're not going to be a one-time buyer when you have that approach. You can bring them the next thing. Now you've already built a rapport. You've built a relationship. You can just show them what you got, and they're probably going to buy from you. So it's all about the beginning, right? It's establishing that know, like, and trust. I think it's really important.
I always like to find patterns and logic in things, and sometimes that's a very frustrating task, Richard. People be people, and dude, like, sometimes you're just like, what? That don't make any sense. But hey, makes sense to them, But here's what I've found. I worked with investors, and I'm an investor myself, and I've worked with people who have been recruiting investors for their real estate deals. And we started noticing a pattern that they were focusing so heavily on what are the details of this deal. And if I've got the best deal, people will invest with me. When in fact, that's not necessarily the case. People are not going to invest with you because you have the best deal. That's the last thing. The least important thing is the actual features of your product. The most important thing is if they're looking at you as a person or as a company or an entity, the first checkbox that every human being has to check before they'll hear anything else is, are you a person of integrity, or are you a company that holds integrity? And nobody can teach you that. You know, your mom and dad, when you were 8 years old, did their best to influence you, and you're either going to follow what they did or you're going to do your own thing, but you are in charge of your personal integrity. If you don't have integrity, people will not buy from you. And that's step number one. But if we check off step number one, then step number two is, do you know what you're doing? Are you a competent person in this particular area? Now, you may be competent in a lot of areas, but are you competent in the area that you're talking to me about? And you need to demonstrate that to your potential client, because if they don't believe you know what you're talking about, they're not going to trust you. And so let's say you demonstrate that competence. For investors, there's a distinguishing factor here, because we think, oh, well, investor just wants me to make them a bunch of money. But actually, no, an investor does not want you to make a bunch of money for them. An investor wants you to take care of their money. They want you to be a good steward of this money, which they understand there's inherent risks involved. So the same thing as if you're selling a service or a product or whatever, are you going to be perfect? Nope. But I'm going to make sure that you're taken care of. And now, if me as a customer, I see you as a, Richard, you're a man of integrity. You obviously know what you're talking about. I feel like you're going to take care of me. Now, please share the details of your deal or your offer or your product. And now all I have to do is decide, is this the thing for me or not? Or is it the right time or not? That's the only decision that I have left, because you checked off all the other boxes. No, the deal looks good. All right, you checked off all 4 boxes now. All I got to do is say yes or no and figure out, what my reasoning is for that. Maybe it's a timing thing or something like that. But that's the process that every single human being is going through when they're making a buying decision. The first trigger is you. The second trigger is how you demonstrate your competence. The third trigger is showing that you actually care about the customer. And then the last trigger is whatever you have in your hand that you're trying to sell.
Yeah, I love that. And that is the order. I love that. And I think when you talk about the competency, do they know? There is, and I might be a little nerdy on this, but I love a pro. And I don't care if they're selling shoes or they're serving me on the airplane. Someone who's like great, and I'll give you an example. So me and a buddy were flying out to Santa Barbara, California, and we're in the plane, and there's 2 stewardesses, they're getting the trays ready and stuff, like they're going to come out and do their thing. One of them is like, pop, she's got them all stay. She's like, she's unbelievably like dialed in. The other one's an absolute hot mess. Okay. And we're looking, go watch this. And we're like watching them both. And I'm like, this one was like, she was so dialed in. She basically could take care of the whole plane by herself, while this other one's fumbling around. The trays are all thin. It just was one of those rare instances where you got to watch this live thing on competency. Someone just wasn't, who hadn't mastered what they need to do. Now, this could have been her first week. I have no idea, or she's just that. But in all the cases, whenever I get someone who's super competent and they're just flowing, I just have this appreciation for them. Like, I will buy from that person. You're exactly right. I'm like, this is so good. It's just, It's magical. I love that experience, because it's just like, I'm not like asking dumb questions. I don't know. All that's handled. He's overcoming objections during the conversation. You know what I mean? I get it, right? I see it. I'm like, dude, you're amazing. Yeah. Dude, I'm going to buy from you because you are a champion.
I don't even need this, but I'm going to buy it out of respect.
Exactly.
That's the curse of like the sales guy, entrepreneur. And it's like, we just end up buying stuff that we don't want because it's like, dude, great job.
Well, and I feel that's giving back. I think it's giving back. It's one of those things too, Josh. And you may think this, you may not, but I think I learned early on. I said, listen, if you don't buy things, you're not going to sell things. You've got to buy from people. If you don't buy from people, if you're always about no, it's all lack, and I don't need that. He's just trying to sell me. It's like, no, you need to buy things. It's kind of that reciprocity thing. You buy things and other people will buy things from you. And, so if you're in the sales industry, you should be buying things, right?
Yeah.
Like it's kind of the universal reciprocity thing, but also I'm always picking up what they do. That was really cool. Just like I told you, like you gave me stuff like you can always learn the next little technique that you can tweak and add to your own game.
That's right.
And it's really important to observe that and going through the sales process. Like you said, yes, we do buy things because we just appreciate the guy. And I think they deserve it because they're at a point of mastery. Like, dude, you deserve it.
Yeah. I have a little running joke with my team, that, we're marketing people. And we do marketing stuff and we generate leads and everything. And I had this little running joke where, guys, I figured out a hack for how to get like anything that you see on like Facebook ads where it's just like an info product that's teaching you how to do something with marketing. I figured out a hack how to get all of those for free. You can get every single one of them for free. So here's the hack. You guys all have the login to my email, right? Go to my email, search the name of the product, and I probably already bought it. I probably already bought it and forgot about it.
Yeah.
And it's true. Like I'm scrolling through, and I see this ad. I'm like, oh man, that looks really good. I think I'm gonna get that. And then one time I stopped myself, and I'm like, I wonder if I already have it. And I went and I looked. Sure enough, I did. And probably 6 or 7 times that I've seen an ad, I've gone back to my email and I bought it like a year ago.
Yeah.
I was about to buy it again, man.
Still haven't looked at it, but the marketing was awesome.
Yeah. Second time around, I find like, oh, maybe I should look at it.
Yeah. I get it, man. That's the power of it. I mean, you got marketing and sales, right? And they are two different things. I had a roofing company, right? So we're out selling roofs. I kind of did the retail end. So I'm not chasing insurance. I'll do it when it's local, but I'm not out doing insurance stuff. So you had marketing and you had sales. So the guys there's a storm, there's a hailstorm. So everyone's basically going to they're going to get a roof replacement for their deductible, $500, $1,000, whatever it is. So they're going to get a $10,000, $15,000 roof for $500. So these guys would go out and a lot of them they'd waive the deductible, right, to close the deal. No, we'll take that. We don't have to worry about that and everything else, which is insurance fraud, just for the record. Okay, because those people are responsible for that, but they'll make up some reason they're doing marketing and put a sign in the yard and all that stuff. And then they tell me how great of a salesman they are. I'm like, well, you're not a salesman. You're a marketer.
you didn't check off box number 1.
That's
Integrity.
right. You're going. That's right. They're doing that right there. I go, you're trying to give them a free roof. Okay, that's not selling. I get people to write me the check for $15,000 and they pay for the whole thing. Okay. Like in the retail sense, said you don't do retail because you can't sell. You can't build that no like and trust. You can't get them to write you a check for $15,000 and not 500 or zero, so we always had this debate. It's okay. I guess we're down to definitions, but you brought up, you put it in this right spot, right? It's the no like and trust. They don't have any of that. They don't have the integrity right out of the chute. And I try to tell people, if you got a counter, like, well, if they're willing to do that, what else are they going to skimp on? They're getting that $500 back. They're not eating that. And how often you go up on your roof and see what they did? You have no idea. You know what I mean? So that's the integrity part, right? It's really, really important. They might be smooth and quick and they're knocking on your door and all that stuff, but I just like this point. It just reminded me of that. I haven't had to do that in quite a while, but I remember that situation, and I was the retail killer. I was awesome. I could go I didn't want to do the insurance ones because I'm like, I'll do the people that need a roof. I'm going to go and it's going to be an amazing experience. I did everything you said. That's what I did. It's integrity. We talk, we get to know. I do the whole thing. I started creating presentations, done for you presentations for companies. Here's the whole process. Here's how you do it. Train them. And I'm like, it works. I take their close rates from 24% to 41%, overnight, that kind of stuff, because exactly what you're talking about, So I think it's it's really valuable to understand So let me ask you, Josh, in this, because you do the training. So this is kind of the process, right? But do you have trouble with people because they don't like slowing down and kind of getting this and understanding how this works, because it changes the sales cycle in a way, doesn't it? Or not?
Yeah. I mean, it changes the sales cycle in the form of making more money. So I guess if you don't want to make more money, then you shouldn't do that.
Yes. Stay sleazy.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. If you want to succeed, Zig Ziglar said it best, in order to get what you want, you just have to help enough other people get what they want.
Right.
And if you have that servant's mentality and like for real have it, not only are the things going to come to you, but you're going to feel good about it also. I spent, when I was doing the call center stuff, hated it. It was so bad because it was just like, we're just boiler room dialing out 150 manual dials a day. And the first job I was selling precious metals, brutal, and then the second one I was selling like internet advertising or something to like Pete in the pickup, just like taking advantage of people. And I hated it, man. Like, that's why I got out. Like I had just ulcers developing because I couldn't stand myself. And you've got to solve people's real problems, not just get money out of them.
Right. Yeah, so true. Yeah, because what I started doing was I started really understanding that. And so one of the things I put in as a policy is if someone called today, they wanted an estimate for something, I always had like a 4-day lead time. Because during that, we got their information. I had a whole warm-up campaign. They get our business license, our insurance. I give them all this stuff, right? So they're getting that. We reminders about the appointment. Then we get a call. So by the time I'm at the door, we've had about 7 or 8 touches already, okay, with them in one way or another. And that seemed to really improve things. Because, again, they start to know who we are. We give them some consumer information. We do all that stuff. So that's what I mean. I kind of stretched it out a little bit, but maybe I wasn't the first guy there, to try to close the deal or do them. But when I did get there, because most people are really stuck on the 3 estimate thing. So if you're second or third, there's still, someone's waiting, for the other 2 to get done. So I'm okay coming in the middle or even at the end. Because again, but we built that time to go into it. So I found that to be really good for my salesmen, for me to be able to get out there and just build that trust, and we may close the deal right there on site. We usually did. Or it was soon after, right? Because they've got to compare now, and it's a very different approach. So, So I think regardless of the industry, I think the process or the philosophy is the same. What you're talking about, doesn't matter what you're selling, product or service. I think the whole process has to be built into the system, right? Like if they had the mindset for this to bring this trust, okay, in whatever that way looks in their sales cycle, their sales process, that's what's going to, like you said, gain them more sales.
Yeah, that's the idea. And then the other thing that's really important about gaining more sales is you've got to have more opportunities. And we can, here's what I've seen over the years. I've built a bunch of sales teams. I've taken companies from 30,000 to a month to 150,000 a month in 90 days. I've taken them from 50 to 150 in 60 days, and I doubled sales for one business in 30 days. And there's lots of things that you can do to optimize your sales process, to increase your conversion rates, and, make everything more efficient. There's all that stuff's great. But nothing beats having a stacked calendar of people who are motivated and qualified and interested in talking to you. Nothing is better than that.
Right.
And I don't think we put enough emphasis on that part. I see people out there scrapping to get anybody on their calendar to talk to, or they're like posting a million BS things on social media, hoping that somebody will care. Cold calling, ads work, but they're expensive. And when I talk to people, and I've worked with over 5,000 entrepreneurs, when I talk to people, the number one question I ask is, where do you get your leads from? How many leads you got coming in? And where do they come from? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is like referrals and word of mouth, which is basically like code for, I don't know.
Small thinker.
Because if you think about it, like, and if you're listening to this now and you say, well, I get my business through referrals and word of mouth, great. Let's put that to the test. How many referrals are you going to get next week? Do you know? If you don't know, then basically you're just waiting for the phone to ring. And here's the problem real quick with referrals and word of mouth is that you are 100% dependent on some other person to remember your name, to remember your contact information, and to remember to even think about it when somebody else in front of them happens to mention the thing that you do. That's an awful lot of variables.
And there's one more. They're also willing to risk their good name referring you. Okay,
yeah, I don't know that
people
guy.
forget that.
I don't know that guy.
Or if he goes and messes up, they might be mad at the contractor, but they're really going to be mad at you, Josh, because you told me to use him. And now when we have dinner together or we get together with our wives, like I'm be hating on you. You gave me a horrible experience, right? So that's that fourth thing. You got to understand whose name is at risk when it comes to referrals. So there's nothing wrong with referrals. There's obviously you want raving fans, right? But I'd rather have them just give me a great 5-star review and write a nice paragraph on how awesome I am, because it's about the same thing. It's less work for them. It's less risk for them. They put that out there. But so let's talk about that, because I think this thing about the leads is so critically important. Okay, like you're saying, you have no predictability with referrals. Like you said, you're at the mercy of prior clients. You got to be asking them and staying in front. And it's important, it's important. Like there's an element that's really good, but really it is getting that lead flow. And what you said earlier about the quality ready to listen and buy, because you don't want to get caught up in the philosophy of busy. It looks like your calendar's full. My wife will remind me of that sometimes. Are you just being busy to be busy? Like, be careful.
Funny you said that. I talked to somebody the other day who, it was kind of like it was like a quasi sales call. It kind of like morphed into something. And she was asking about what I do, and I can talk about that in a minute if you want. But, and so she said at one point, well, I really want to do this, but I lack the cash. And I'm like, okay. And I poked through to find out if that was a smokescreen. And no, in fact, she really is just in dire straits, I'm like, okay. Because she was very honest about it. And so I said, okay, well, I'll tell you what, let me see if I can help you with that. I've got a couple of ideas for you. You want to set another call. So we set another call, and we were looking at our calendar, and she said, I said, how about Monday? She's like, oh, Monday's really busy for me. And then I said, like, busy making money or what? And she was like, good point. And she found time for me on Monday, because it was like, well, what are you doing if you don't have any money? You probably need to be doing money-making activities. And if you're not doing money-making activities, then go get a job. Like, I'm a pretty nice guy, but I talk to so many broke people who just won't make themselves unbroke. Right. It's like they enjoy it or something. And here's the thing. You need to be spending 80+% of your time prospecting for new business until, and hear me clearly here, until it is no longer practical for you to do that. And then you need to hire that and have somebody else spend 80% of their time prospecting for new business. If you spend 80% of your day, which if you've got an 8-hour work day, that's like 6 hours, right? If you spend 6 hours a day prospecting for new business, you will get yourself out of a jam fast. If you're not doing that now and you're not where you want to be, that's your solution. Like, you don't have to do anything else. You don't have to get a better sales pitch. You don't have to buy business cards. You don't need a new logo or a website. You don't need a crafty new idea. You need to go out and talk to as many people as you can for 6 out of the 8 hours a day you're working, and spend the other 2 hours on either administration stuff or the sales calls that you were able to book from your prospecting or delivery or whatever other thing you have left. But prospecting is the number one thing that you need to be doing. And fortunately, there's lots of ways that you can prospect for new business.
Yeah, that's such a good takeaway, because that is the only way out. If you're not asking for more business, you're not getting more business. You know, if you don't ask for help, you don't get help. You're just going to stand there, right? So the whole thing is really, like you're saying, I love it. The whole kind of 80-20 thing there is really, really good. But, and people, it's prospecting for 6 hours. If you haven't done it, is work. Okay. It's real work. You know, it's kind of like you doing the 150 calls a day at the call center. You know, like, it's work, man. It's again and again and again, but it's productive because you're going to get fruit from that. So I think that's really, really good. And that's one of the more solid takeaways someone could have when they're in that position, when they're in that curse of being busy and not productive, or they're broke and they're looking to make something happen. That's really important. So let's talk about what you specifically do. Josh, why don't you share that with us and kind of get into that a little bit on what exactly you do and how you help people?
So for the longest time, I've been building businesses and sales teams, and that's gone really well. But I hated cold calling. And at the time when I was just getting started, looking back, I probably could have afforded to just start using ads. But at the time, I didn't believe it. And a lot of people hold that sentiment. It's like, oh, ads are expensive, it's a big risk and blah, blah, blah. So it's like, whether or not that's true, it's a very valid, like the zeitgeist says, ads are hard. And they are hard. And so I had to figure out a way to get in front of people without cold calling and without spending money on ads. And it goes back to the third and final point that I really want to make about the secret to sales success, or whatever, if we're putting on a motivational Tony Robbins summit, is you must have a great offer. You must have an absolutely great offer. You need to have really not just one great offer, but two great offers. You need to have a great offer that any potential customer would not want to say no to. Like, wow, why would I say no to that? So that you can make money. But in order to have that chance of presenting that offer, you need a second offer. And that second offer is a really compelling reason for your prospect to even give you attention in the first place. You must stimulate interest. And that's the problem we're running into now, going into 2025, is we're distracted. The average human attention span, 8.25 seconds, less than a goldfish. We see 10,000 plus advertising messages per day. We've been burned. We've been ripped off. We've been lied to. And we've blown money that we've regretted just because we made a gut check decision at one moment. And we've had our families yell at us, and we felt embarrassed, and we felt stupid. And there's all kinds of bad news and negativity all over the world. So why the hell should I listen to you, sales guy? There's only 3% of you in the world that are even trustworthy. And this is what you're up against every single day when you're trying to break through the fortress of resistance to even have the opportunity to say, here's my offer. It's been made just for you because I know you can't say no to this because it's exactly what you want. You don't even have that opportunity 98% of the time because they won't even give you the time of day. So solve that problem first. Here's how I solved that problem. I created what's called a conversion podcast. And a conversion podcast is that great offer that stimulates interest for my ideal client. Now, if you think about an insurance agent as an example, you might think that an insurance agent's ideal clients are, homeowners, people that own cars and that sort of thing. Actually, their ideal clients are referral partners and influencers, because referral partners and influencers can introduce them to 100 new clients. And so most of these referral partners and influencers run businesses that have employees. And so what can I do as an insurance agent to get that person's attention? Because he could bring me 100 clients. Well, I know that he runs an accounting firm. And I know that there's other accounting firms out there with hundreds of clients that could be sent to me as well. So I'm going to start a podcast for accounting firms, and I'm going to have them come on and talk about numbers stuff, or how they grew their business, or what's their philosophy on finances or the economy or tax strategies or something like that, because that's the thing that's going to be compelling to them to come on and talk about. Hey, I'm going to bring you on. Come talk about all your cool accounting stuff. And then when I get them on the podcast, I'm going to drop a little offer and say, by the way, this show is brought to you by ABC Insurance Agency. We love working with, if you're an accounting firm, we love working with accounting firms because we can get your customers the best quotes, and we don't do common pain point, and we give you extra benefit. If you're interested, go to abc.com. Today's guest is Bob Smith. He runs XYZ accounting firm, and he's going to tell us a story about whatever. And so what happened there is I have already picked out my ideal client. I built an environment that he or she wants to be in and is very compelling, because I said, Bob, come on and talk to me about how great you are. And then when I start the episode, I give the little sponsor spot. Remember, we get hit with 10,000 pieces of advertising every day, so it's not like it's unusual. They hear the sponsor spot, except the difference is the sponsor spot is directed right at between their eyes. Like, I could not have a more targeted piece of marketing. It's one-to-one, exactly solving your pain points and creating your desired outcome. And then at the end of that conversation, Bob, that was a great job. It was an awesome interview. First thing out of Bob's mouth, hey, tell me more about that referral program. That sounds cool. I've been thinking about that. And now, that's not a closed deal always, but it opens up a conversation to enter your sales process. And here's the thing, very natural. It's very authentic. Some people are like, hey, it's kind of like a bait and switch. But no, you're bringing them on, you're featuring them, you're giving them the spotlight, and you're paying the bills by putting the commercial up front. People are used to watching TV and seeing commercials. Not a big deal. If they're interested, they'll do something. That's how marketing works. If they're not interested, they're not going to say anything. You may never talk to them again. But about 9 times out of 10, you finish this conversation and they say, oh, cool. I didn't know you did that. Can you tell me more about that? You can use any profession here: roofing, marketing agency, business coach, whatever it is. You can use any industry there, and the same thing's going to work. But it has to be a really, really good offer. You got to give them a good reason to come on and talk to you. That's offer number one. And then when you drop that, what we call an anchor offer at the beginning, that's got to be an offer that's just like, I will slap my mother to get that. And if you got that right, you got a real good chance of closing that business. And we were able to do this process. We streamlined it down to like a science. we were able to follow this process. We booked 121 qualified sales calls with our ideal client profile in 10 days. 121 calls in 10 days. And we closed business from that quite a bit. And not only did we close business, but we got referral partners. We got stage invitations to go and speak on stage. We got invited to virtual summits. Like, when was the last time you were on a sales call where your potential customer said, this sales call was such a great experience, I want to invite 3 of my friends to come on to your sales call too? It was the craziest thing. So I've recorded now over 1,000 podcast episodes. I've been doing it for about 8 years. I now have a team that helps me. I have multiple people doing episodes. We've recorded like almost 300 this year between 2 of us. 300 episodes just this year. And we're not slowing down, we're speeding up. And what we realize is there's other people that want this because they're in a red ocean industry that is hyper competitive, and they can't even get their prospects' attention. This pierces through that entire veil, grabs them and says, come talk to me. Let me establish a relationship with you in 12 minutes so that you can know, like, and trust me, and we can even have an opportunity to do business together. And that's what the Conversion Podcast is all about.
Yeah, dude, it's genius. Okay, that's what it is. You know, when you had first told me about this, I changed everything. Okay, I only had to hear that. We didn't even go into this much detail, right? We just kind of, I'm like, that's when you feel stupid. Okay, I know I shouldn't, but you're just like, dang, and here I'm doing podcasts, and I did another 100, and I'm like, okay, got a new direction. That's good. You know, but it just makes complete sense. And what I tell people is, when I ask people that want to be on my podcast, people are lined up to be on my podcast. Mm-hmm. I have not 40 hard. People scheduled, like, without even trying.
Yeah.
You know, so if you say, hey, come on and tell me a little about who's saying no to that? You know, you've just given them celebrity status. Like, people want to hear what I want to share with what you do with and it's brilliant. And like you said, with the right process, right, understanding and how you do it, and then still being authentic, right? I get to speak to my ideal client. I'm pretty sure you know how to speak to that person. Okay, if they're your ideal client, that's like natural. You know, it's just a great conversation, you know? So it's very exciting. And I love that you do that, Josh, because I think it's brilliant. You've obviously made it work really, really well. And that's what it's all about, right? Just like the lady who had the busy calendar, has she started a podcast? She should, right? You got that kind of time. Well, let's start booking. And think if you took 2 days a week and you're interviewing 10 people a week. You know, even if you just start out simple and it's 10, that's 10 in 9 of those most likely are going to continue the conversation. And that's when you go to work, you know, because it's only about booking the assessment call or whatever it's going to be. Like, you get that and you're in. Now it's up to you. Okay. You did kind of the hard part, and now you got to just go finish that layup. You know what I mean?
And we've gotten it to the point to where we're launching a new podcast. It's called Big Ticket Pros, and it's a conversion podcast. And we started, I think, on Tuesday morning. We have since booked 28 people, and it's Friday. So in 3 days, we've averaged almost 10 per day. And then we've actually gotten this. Now we're testing out. We're putting a video after they book the call, talking about what we do. And we actually had our first person go ahead and book the call. We haven't even talked to them. We haven't even had the interview yet, and they're booked to actually talk about what we do. And so we're testing that out as well. And we'll still have the conversation. We'll still do the podcast, no problem.
Of course.
But I think she actually booked the strategy call before the podcast. So, and so we're getting to the point to where, like, hey, I want to bring you in. I want to feature you. And even the idea of us featuring them has given them the know, like, and trust enough to go ahead and book a call with us and talk before we even know each other.
Yep. Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. You're right. It's, you know, when you mention the red ocean, and people don't know, there's the red and the blue, right? Red is it's just fierce competition. Everything's feeding his blood in the water.
Sharks everywhere.
They're just doing the stuff, right? And we're all looking for that blue ocean, but if you're in the red ocean and you can still produce, that's a beautiful thing, because sometimes that's the only place you can operate.
Yeah, here's the thing about the red ocean. It's red because that's where all the food is. And rather than swimming out to the middle of the sea where, you may starve to death, like Tom Hanks or whatever, go where the food's at.
That's right.
That's what I got, man.
Just got to throw down a little bit, but that's awesome. Josh, this has been great, man. This has been absolutely fantastic. So how can people get in touch with you, follow you, the drill, the whole thing? What do they got to do to reach out to you?
If you want the blueprint for how conversational funnels work, you can go to conversationalfunnels.com. I'm going to show you what we call the conversion podcast. You'll get the entire blueprint framework for that. And then a 15-minute video of me walking through every single step so that you understand exactly how to do this. And if you like it, run with it. If you want to talk to me about it, then book a call. I am happy to take anyone's call off of Richard's podcast. I will build you a custom plan for exactly how you would structure a conversion podcast for your industry and your ideal client at no cost whatsoever. Take that and run with it. We have a small service that if you want us to build it for you and run it and book all the guests and edit and publish and take all this stuff off your plate, so all you have to do is show up, talk, and close, then you can ask me about that, and I'll be happy to tell you. But I'm only going to bring it up if you ask. The rest of the call is very much about building that plan for you so that you can have the information you need to start booking calls on your calendar. And really, honestly, as far as expectations, you could have 10 people on your calendar next week.
Yep.
And you don't have to be a podcast pro or anything like that. There's a script. I'll give you the dang script. It's here's what you say, here's a question you ask, and it's going to sound like you've been doing this for years.
Yep.
Conversationalfunnels.com. Free blueprint. And then you can book a call with me if you want.
Love it, Josh. That is awesome. And if you're thinking about it, just do it. If you're thinking about it, you're already there. Just do it. There's no more to think about. It doesn't cost you anything. Just go to conversationalfunnels.com and get the stuff and put it into play. Don't be busy, be productive, right? Just make it work. And I love all this stuff, right? Podcasting is just fun. Interviewing people, talking to people, everything else. But when you can turn it into an income generator, a sales machine, you got the best of both worlds. It's awesome.
That's right.
Again, Josh, thanks for the time today. It has been fantastic. And everyone listening, we will see you on the next Sharpen the Spear podcast. And don't forget, revenue feeds the ego, profit feeds the family. So if you want to see how I can show you at least $100,000 in hidden annual profits in less than 3 minutes, and not only show you where, but how to create that 100K in 6 months or less without additional advertising or marketing spend, guaranteed, just go to sharpenthespearcoaching.com. See how truly simple it is. That's sharpenthespearcoaching.com. Do it now.